There's hope for you yet. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to our weekly review and breakdown of Ahsoka for the Kinda Funny screencast. My name is Barrett Courtney, filling in as host for Tim Geddes, who's out on assignment, web swinging with our favorite web-headed heroes, previewing Marvel Spider-Man 2. But he'll be back next week. Today, though, I am joined by one of our favorite Spider Bros, Anthony Carboni.
Oh my goodness. Rebels fans are eating my boy. They're eating and
Nom, 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 nom.
People who've been screaming at Star Wars to do retcons are eating as well.
We are also rounding out this week's trio. We're joined by one of the most kick-ass people on the internet, founder of Pixel Opus, Saige Ryan. Saige, how you doing today?
Coming to you digitally de-aged like Hayden Christensen, I'm doing great.
Yeah,
I thought it looked pretty good. It didn't look perfect, but I think it looked pretty good.
There were some moments it worked, and some moments it didn't, you know?
I agree, and I'm usually somebody who's like not super, I would say, nitpicky about the like digital de-aging or like the CGI variations they've done of Star Wars actors. I think they're great at it, to be clear. But there's something very specific with Hayden Christensen that we kept seeing on this, which is the lines right here on his face that come through in a very strange way as they're trying to de-age it. It's a very natural aging thing that's fighting with their tech.
It's like when the lifestyle influencers on TikTok move a little too quickly for their filter to catch up.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you have wrinkles on your forehead. I can see them. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was a little bit like a TikTok influencer, I'd say.
Yeah.
Hayden
Christensen is a bit like a TikTok influencer in so many ways.
Yeah, and we're going to talk all about Hayden Christensen's TikTok influencing, because this is the Kinda Funny screencast, your home for all of Kinda Funny's weekly reviews of the biggest and nerdiest shows around, which you can catch here on youtube.com/kindafunny or on podcast services around the globe. Right now, we're in the middle of our run with Ahsoka, the newest series in the Star Wars universe. But if that's not your speed, make sure to tune in next month, where we will return to the MCU with season 2 of Loki, which I can't believe is already so close. But as far as the here and now is concerned, I want to thank our Patreon producers for the month of September, who can watch the show ad-free with anyone who supports us on patreon.com/kindafunny at the $10 tier or above. Jedi Master Deadpool, James Hastings, Casey Andrew, Logan Delaney, Nathan Lamoth, and Patrick Delgado. Speaking of ads, this week we're brought to you by Rocket Money and DraftKings Sportsbook, but we'll tell you about that later. Let's get into it. Ahsoka Episode 5, Shadow Warrior, written and directed by Dave Filoni himself. Saige, I want to start off with you. How are you feeling coming off of last night's episode? Initial reactions, all of that stuff.
I loved the episode. I thought it was wonderful. I think it has kept such a wonderful pace with the season so far. Like, it is so perfectly episode 5 of this series. I think that it is escalating in a way that I'm really excited about. I think every single episode has gotten more exciting without starting from a boring place. That's been really, really wonderful. It's been very interesting. I've seen a lot of the internet being like, Hayden Christensen redeeming himself for his performance in the prequels. Hey, and you shut your mouth.
Hey, everybody shut your mouths. Take
he
your
was always
dirty
great.
Mouths and wash your dirty mouths. And
he was always great, okay?
It's a gem that we never deserved for how we've spoken about the prequels.
Is this finally the first time maybe he's gotten like a good script in Star Wars? Maybe, but you know what? What he did with those scripts, I always enjoyed.
We talked about this when we rewatched Attack of the Clones, where we were just like, look, these people are doing amazing work with, honestly, a director who at the time was overwhelmed with ideas of world building and technology and filmmaking in general, and was just like, I don't have time to direct your performances. And I also think this is what human beings sound like. And if I'm wrong, don't tell me. Carrie is not here to tell me, and Lee is not here to tell me.
Anyways, I really enjoyed the episode. I loved, obviously, I mean, the highlight for me is the battle. It is Anakin. It is that moment between them. I had a lot of theories last week on what that would be. I texted our little group chat in between this, because I was like, hold on. That's Vader's saber. So I was shocked when he actually pulled out Anakin's saber first.
Yeah.
And I was confused because I was like, was I wrong? Did I not see it right? I went back and I looked at the screenshot. In that shot, it is Vader's saber, which obviously we know that escalated throughout the episode. But as soon as he pulled out Anakin's, I was like, oh, okay, I can't predict where this is going. I love this, and I love this elaboration on Anakin Skywalker. I love that we are expanding upon it not just being good guy, one day bad guy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Anakin has that real night and day. He's our best boy, and we love Anakin, and he's just a sweet boy. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, oh, and he's the biggest dictator in the world.
But yeah,
you
also
can
he's a little
tell-
bit of a space fascist, you know?
Yeah,
Right,
you
like,
can
oops,
tell
all
whether
genocide,
somebody's evil if they're wearing, depending on what bracer they're wearing on their wrist. That's how you can tell
Right.
they're evil.
But
Other than that, there's
seeing
no way to
this
know.
complicated Anakin Skywalker was an absolute treat for me. So this has been my favorite episode so far.
Hell yeah. Carboni, how did you feel about last night's episode?
Got to agree. I think bringing the sort of the downfall of Anakin and the conflict of Anakin, like Saige was saying, out of sort of extended canon and into and not even just extended canon, but extended media and into, you know, the main stage of the TV and movies, where it's like a lot of us who have been Star Wars fans for a while have watched the downfall of Anakin, but we have never seen it in live action on screen like this before. So that was wonderful. It was wonderful to see Tamora Morrison as Rex. It was wonderful to see some of this emotional background and conflict that I've been waiting for from Ahsoka. You know, this is something that we talked about last week, and y'all were like, we're going to get it next week. We're going to get it next week. I would have loved to have gotten a little bit of it earlier, just to get me invested a little bit more. But I think this episode filled in a lot of really wonderful blanks, and also finally fulfilled my Purgle quota for live action Disney Plus. How did you feel, Barrett?
I felt really good about it. I think this episode continued the cadence that I've been talking about with a lot of episodes in this series, kind of not reflecting, but like paying homage in not like huge overbearing ways to other Star Wars pieces of media, right? The first two episodes felt really Phantom Menace-y. The third episode felt like A New Hope, and then last week's episode and this week's episode, and like together, definitely feel a bit like Empire, and not in just the ways of like, oh man, it's kind of a downer, and like there's a lot of learning and stuff like that. But even just like the final moments where Ahsoka and Huyang are gonna go off, and they're talking to Hera like over like the comms, like not on the same ship, and they're like, we're gonna go get our friends and we'll be back. Like those felt like the final moments of Empire in a way. And
Yeah.
I love that we're kind of continuing that cadence here. And yeah, just to get into all of the Clone Wars stuff and seeing some of that brought to life.
Yeah, you're a Clone Wars boy.
I'm a huge Clone Wars boy, and then seeing Hayden Christensen live action in the Clone Wars Anakin get up was like so like
he looks so cool.
He looks so fucking cool.
He looks just as cool as we all knew he would have looked.
Yes, yeah. And seeing Hayden get to play around with, you know, a little bit of like a bit of both of how Anakin was depicted in the movies, but also, you know, Filoni getting to work with him and talk about like what Filoni did for years of playing with Anakin's character in the Clone Wars. Seeing Hayden Christensen live action get to, you know, granted he was, you know, not a part of the show, but to see him be like a part of Ahsoka's life and the live action stuff, I thought was really cool. And yeah, I adored it all. You know, there's some
and by
very
the way,
obviously.
Real quick,
Yeah,
I just want to shout out to Matt Lanter and of course to Ashley Eckstein for being Anakin and Ahsoka for 7 years and doing the work, filling in that notebook and shading in those characters to take Dave and the Ahsoka team to where they are today. Because I love the two of them as Anakin and Ahsoka, and I think, you know, obviously we couldn't have had this series without their performances. So, but it was great. You're right. It's great to see. There's nothing that compares to seeing, you know, Hayden back in the saddle.
Yeah, and that 100% shout out to those actors, because like when I hear Anakin, I do hear the blanking on the name right now. Sorry, but
Matt Lanter.
Yeah, Matt.
I same thing.
I hear his voice.
Depending on what part of Anakin's life I'm thinking about.
True.
I do hear Matt's voice in my head or Hayden's voice in my head. And so it's cool to see the two characters, like, or the two versions of that character kind of like coalesce again.
And I also loved, I was talking to Roger this morning because he's also been watching Ahsoka and he really loved last night's episode. And like one of his biggest issues with it, and something I've talked to a couple people about, is like how stoic and a little bit more held back Ahsoka has felt as a character compared to how she was in Rebels. And granted, we haven't seen her really in a huge capacity almost in 10 years when you think about the Star Wars timeline, right? Because the last time we majorly saw her was at the time where she had to like really accept that what became of Anakin was Darth Vader, right? And then
she was just a little Ariana Greenblatt at that point. Like she hadn't even.
Oh, we got to talk about that when we get there. But yeah, and then to kind of see her majorly in this show be a little bit more like a typical Ronin Jedi, kind of a bit more held back, a little bit how Luke is presented like in recent years, right? And to have just even the last 10 minutes of this after this, Ahsoka goes through her own like Dagobah journey of kind of refining herself, and we, even though it's just little moments of Rosario Dawson's acting, it felt like, oh shit, she's opening back up a little bit like how she was in Rebels, which I absolutely adored. So
you reference her being like Luke, I mean, literally down to "I won't fight you."
I know.
Getting the response from Anakin of like, "I've heard that before."
Yeah. But even the way he's talking to her, you lack conviction. Like all of these things that he's saying that are very, very Vaderish. But there was one line that was just, it was the crux of the whole episode to me, where she's talking about, they're talking about the training, and my hairs are standing on end again, but they're talking about the training, and she says, "Oh, I'm just here to fight, like that's all I am." He's like, "No, you're more than that." He's like, "You have to be more than that because I'm more than that." He's like, "If you're not more than that, I'm not more than that." And we know what happens to him. We know we're in the world between worlds now, right? And this is some sort of Anakin that exists outside of time and is aware of probably the entire timeline of the life of Anakin Skywalker.
He knows exactly what he's done. I mean, if he can reference fighting Luke, then he knows up until his death.
He knows, like, the world between worlds is a wild place. Your lightsabers are changing colors, things are happening, and just the fact that he says, "No, you have to be this. Because if you are not more than this, then I'm not more than this, and I don't want to think of myself this way." It was such a powerful moment for me, and that to me was
beautifully complicated.
That was the moment of the episode for me. There was a lot of fun stuff, though. There was a lot of great stuff.
Alternative moment of the episode: Hu Yang. I gotta throw it out there. Hu Yang staring at the broken piece of it over the cliff that we know Ahsoka has fallen from before we find her again, saying, "I told them to stay together."
They never listen. And he's just so sad. There was some great Hu Yang stuff. Yang,
like when Hera asks, and I love that Hera asks about Ahsoka's master, and like, and that's happening in the, and like the one word he asked for was like intense, and then we cut back over to the world between worlds and Ahsoka and Anakin, and it's just absolutely great.
Yeah, so I mean, talking about sort of these other characters that are hanging out before we get into the meat of the Anakin and Ahsoka stuff, seeing Carson just being like, "Look, we can't get in trouble. We have to keep doing this without getting in trouble." That's been Carson's whole line that he walks. He's just like, "Look, if we don't do this when they yell at us, we don't get to do it again." That was fun to see. It was fun to see. Jason.
I'm a simple Star Wars fan, and Carson also references Leia. We have to acknowledge that Carson also says Senator Organa is running interference. Senator Organa. I'm a simple Star Wars fan. I hear Organa and I go,
"Yay!"
And
we know who that is.
I love her.
And
it's interesting, best. Like he specifically references like Senator. Do we know if and when she? I haven't read the specific book of, there's this stuff that comes out where she's Vader's daughter. Does she get kicked out of the Senate eventually? Because then at one point she does just is a part of the rebellion
She does eventually. There's a smear campaign against her for being Vader's daughter. That was I forget who wrote that book, but yes, there was a book about that. But at this point, she is still helping from within the inside. But then we also have Chopper and Jason are there. And Chopper, listen, I love Chopper. They're doing a great job at pulling back on Chopper enough so you don't think about him being just this weird ass cartoon character, because he really is just a weird ass cartoon character.
Yeah.
So they're doing a great job of making him fit, and the just the relationship between him and Jason entirely in this episode was cool. Hey, everybody gonna be a Jedi? Because we've had shows where it's like nobody's Jedi, and then like in this show it's like but like we'll train anybody at this point. Like, who do you want to train? And we'll do it. And if they haven't shown that they have powers, let's just show real quick that somebody has powers.
Here's what I'll say. I think that's foundational to Ahsoka's show. We've got a different thing for everybody's show. And Ahsoka's show so much is about her having both been an apprentice and been a master, like having been a Padawan and struggling through it. I mean, her conversation with Anakin surrounds like, do you even want a Padawan? It's not easy to do so, which is like insulting and just mean. It's one of those things that just hurts her as like someone she looked up to so much that abandoned her, of like, yeah, I didn't enjoy it. It almost had that like, it was hard dealing with you and I didn't enjoy it. And that like,
I'm joking. I was a joke. I'm joking.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it is and it isn't. And there's this like, you can't suppress that invaderness in Anakin right now. But like, I think there are so many themes of learning in this show. I mean, our two pairs essentially that we're watching back and forth between it. I think that is foundationally what this show is. And we're expanding upon what we knew to be true about the Force.
Yeah.
The Force exists. The Force is like magic. It exists in the world and anyone can access it. Some have more ability to than others. Some manifest it in different ways than others. It makes perfect sense to me and I'm all in.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, Jason is as the son of Kanan. I mean, obviously, like it makes sense because while we're still doing, yes, it's magic. Some people are just genetically predisposed to access magic better. Yeah. And so I get it, and I am kind of making a goof because I would like to see. We know that Luke's attempt to build a temple fails. We know that.
And it's interesting to see, like, it'll be interesting to learn of, like, who was there and who wasn't. Like, does Jason end up being one of those students?
Right. And then who does Ben just, and that's the end of Jason? Yeah. And then also, is Ahsoka going to take on students as well, but in a very Ahsoka way of like, hey, whoa, we're not Jedi and we don't have to be Jedi. We can do our own thing. I'm going to train you to just be good at this and to do good with it. Because we do see the emergence of Ahsoka the White, which is our retcon, which I love, actually. I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually,
within the story that they're telling here, it does work a lot, especially going into what is essentially going to be the third act of this show, right? Yeah, like getting the gray robes and, it's still kind of just the blanket that she's wearing, Saige, that
it's an upgrade from the blanket. It's a half blanket.
Okay, yeah,
you got a free arm sticking out from under it. I'll say it's still giving a little bit of a snuggie, but it's an upgrade.
She's got, I'm telling you, it's just one of those infinity scarves that they're always trying to sell to moms on TikTok where it's like, you can wear it 18 ways.
Yeah, it's a Jedi snuggie, and
to bring it back to Jason, I just loved when they're getting onto the planet and Hera's looking around and she hears Hu Yang at first, but it's not entirely sure. She tells Jason to like, hey, like stay back, and Jason like hides behind Chopper, which I absolutely just like adored. And it's just like a little moment of like how much Chopper means, not just to Hera because that's Hera's droid, but to Jason as well, which I just really adored.
And that's Chopper character growth too. Rebels era Chopper would have been like rup, 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 and then like rolled away and left like the kid like hiding.
And now he has to be like kind of like a droid uncle to this kid, you know. So anybody can grow, even war criminal Chopper.
I think seeing this support crew, Hera being like, I've spent my whole life getting to this rank. What does this rank mean if I can't do the right thing?
Yeah.
And if nobody's going to listen to me, does the rank mean anything?
We got that
So
little
how-
Mon
Tara.
Mothma cameo.
Let's go over to Mon Mothma then, because I think it was last week we were talking about like, oh, like maybe she's gonna play like sly under the table, like she knows Hera, maybe she'll help her out. But it seemed like this week it seems like she's tied up more in bureaucracy than we would want her to. So how did y'all feel about that check-in with Mothma?
I'm not surprised by the direction that it went. That doesn't align with what we know about Mon Mothma to me. In the many different iterations we've seen of her, both in understanding more about her background as we got to like explore more of that recently, and in also how we've seen her, interact and being that kind of like antithesis to a lot of the rebels in a lot of way, being the one that keeps the rebels in line, being the person who holds a bit of order that people kind of want to argue with. Like, you always got to have that, like, they've put her in a very like mother figure antithesis to a lot of the scrappy gunslinger boys, and it always makes sense to me. So I'm not surprised to see it. Once again, Mon Mothma popped up, and me as a simple Star Wars fan went every time. I love her. I love her, and I think it's wonderful, and I think that it's great. And you had to have that balance of like Leia's doing her best, but Mon Mothma is not with it.
Well, and it's fun to see now that we have some of that detail from Andor, of like, if we didn't know what we know from Andor, we would see Mon Mothma probably the same way Carson and Hera see her, which is like every other bureaucrat that we've met in every other Star Wars show that's like, no, it's cool. Like, we just listen. It's cool, but we just got to follow these rules. Why won't you just hush up and follow the rules so we can have this nice
We're
thing?
on the same side here.
Yeah. Because she does say, like, look, if you don't get back here and talk to us about this, I can't justify it.
Right.
Like,
and she is trying. It's not entirely nothing to it, but
she does want to believe Hera, but it's just unfortunate that there's literally nothing that they can bring back.
It's a fragile republic and a fragile rebellion right now, and like it's not doing well. It's not doing well, the New Republic. So it's understandable. But kind of seeing all that happen around as this sort of internal conflict is taking place between Ahsoka and Anakin. Wow, the things that we got to see. Seeing the initial Clone Wars of it all, and what I like is when Anakin starts responding to young Ahsoka when she finds herself in the Clone Wars. His response.
Shout out to Ariana Greenblatt, who also played young Gamora in Infinity War.
That's right. That's right. If you need a baby badass, you call Ariana Greenblatt.
I love it.
She knows there's a balance to all things. So, what I like is in that initial moment, we don't know if Anakin is responding to her in the moment or is responding the way he did. Because she's like, what's going? It's the Clone Wars. And he's like, obviously. It's like, what do we do? Fight. Like, he's talking to her like, and then what about my training? This is your training. This is all stuff that could have happened on the day.
Yeah.
So
and the fact that it's so vague. Yeah, the way that it's so vague and the way that they frame that script to, build to the further point of how everything between their relationship, how Anakin as a person, that like you see and feel everything kind of all at once. It was very well done.
I just having that moment of, hey, I'm a kid, and you sent me into battle with all of these adults, and they died, and I'm trying to deal with that. And we see the sort of, episode 2-ish to 3-ish Anakin that's just like, my dude, that is what happens. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but this is war now. I was like, and I love the way he puts it. He's like, no, that was peacetime Anakin that was training you. And now it's wartime, and we go fight or you die. And I don't have time. She's like 11 or 12 at this point. And he's like, I don't have time to deal with this. We need to go kill more people now. Right. And it's like, oh, you can really see where, and if I had not watched the Clone Wars series or Rebels, I think this is such a good episode for anyone who is new to this to just be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I get how she kind of ended up like this.
Yeah, especially even if it's just like the last couple of seasons of Clone Wars, that's like kind of the trajectory that they push Ahsoka down towards, of like being able to realistically look at what the Jedi were and what they are now, and her complicated feelings about that. And she has the line here of mistakes cost lives, and how Jedi should honestly probably feel a lot more about that rather than they did during the Clone Wars, and just the her not continuing to follow Anakin, and we see the shot of him quickly like turn into Vader and then turn back, and all that
Good
whole
shots.
framing, the editing around it, just all that whole effect, that entire sequence was absolutely beautiful and gorgeous, and just again, like you were saying, if you missed,
oh sorry,
what's
go
up?
on.
I was just gonna say, like I think if you haven't seen Clone Wars, I think not a huge, like not a whole summation, but I think is like a pretty. If you're never gonna watch that show, that's all you really need to understand like
for the
what
lens
Ahsoka
of
went
this
through.
character.
Yeah, 100%.
It's explained. But I will say one of the things that I loved. You're talking about these framings and the way these shots.
I want to hear about what you loved right after a
Mm-hmm.
word from our sponsors.
Oh.
This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and it helps lower your bills all in one place. And it has surprised multiple people at KindaFunny, multiple of my friends, at how many subscriptions they have that they forgot about and are still paying for. It's so easy to cancel the ones you don't want with just the press of a button. Rocket Money, it does all the work for you. Rocket Money can even negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill and Rocket Money will take care of the rest. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills all in one place. Stop wasting money on things that you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and manage your money the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. That's rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. This episode's brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Football is back in full swing with another week of epic games, and who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. You can get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code KindaFunny to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KindaFunny. The crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. You can call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort KS. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
All right, Carboni, what did you love?
What I liked about these shots, these sort of flashback / training / whatever shots, it made me realize, hey, they could go lighter on the volume stuff and the digital environment stuff, and just put more things in like dramatic light and fog. Like, I listen, the whole thing with ILM has always been, and the thing with Lucasfilm has always been, pushing the technology of film forward just as much as making films, right? So I understand why they want to use all the newest stuff all the time. But there was something, particularly with a battle scene, particularly with the Clone Wars battle scene and the Siege of Mandalore.
Oh,
The Siege of Mandalore scene, because it was in this like fog and there was the vignetting and there was like, I was like, this feels like such a real battle to me.
Yeah.
In a way that
because at the
sometimes
same
they
time,
can't accomplish.
like she's actually, like approaching people, actually fighting people. It feels like it's still like a physical space, which just the choreography for it all, it did really feel like one of the sequences that you would have seen at the last arc of the Clone Wars, right? It was absolutely fantastic.
We got a Mandalorian, dude.
Yeah,
live action Mandalorian. We got
and we
the
got to
Shadow
see
Ruler.
It was like, you know, you like again, shout out to Captain Rex, which was such a fantastic moment. But like blink and you miss it kind of thing. Like you see a couple of the 501st members that have the Ahsoka like paint on their masks, which was absolutely awesome. My one thing about this is that because we're having Ariana Greenblatt do both Ahsoka kind of near the beginning of the Clone Wars, and then we're doing Ahsoka at the very end with the Siege of Mandalore. It's like there's a pretty big gap. Like, granted, like you see how young she is at the beginning of the Clone Wars, and like how much of like in her late teens she is at the end of the show. So it's like you don't really get a sense of like how
much
long
time
it's
passed.
Yeah, but at the same time I can understand from like a storytelling perspective of like either way she was still really fucking young to be dealing with all of this and to be in this religious order and leading all of these men.
The world between worlds too, and I don't want to use this as a way to just brush off anything that feels inconsistent, but remember that the world between worlds is like she's seeing herself the way she thought of herself during this. And so she probably saw herself as like, I was a child through all this. I shouldn't have been a part of this. I was a child. And so for me, it's okay that she didn't age, even though I thought the same thing you thought. I was like, you know, between the ages of 11 and 17, like kids change.
Yes, definitely. When we get to like the Siege of Mandalore and he's like, I don't recognize this one. And she's explaining that. And that obviously she would be older there.
It wouldn't have fit in the scene, but I was really hoping of like they just try to fit in like a 20-second lore drop of like, and Darth Maul was here, just like to explain it to people who have not watched Clone Wars. It would not have worked. 100
Tamora Morrisons running by, all of them saying different lines of it. He's like, and then this happened. That's right. And then we did this.
But I have an opinion on the age thing because I think the age thing is that Anakin brought her here at this age. He brought to show her and these memories that were important to her training of her as a child. And that, because he's like, I don't recognize this one, is her kind of like taking control over it and showing him something. So that to me justified her not changing in age, in that he had set up this scenario and she is like starting to manipulate it and like kind of like her own psyche is like taking control of it a little bit, that I thought was actually very cool.
Which is cool because it's also what he wants, right? Like he wants her to fight him and get mad at him, and then decide like, no, I want to live, and not only do I want to live my way, and I finally know, and I'm okay with what that way is. You know, watching Ahsoka, and this is something like, yes, there's more in this show if you watched all this other stuff and you know the deep lore. It's always going to be that way. Not everything is for everyone. I think this show works no matter what, but knowing what we know about Ahsoka going from Padawan to Fulcrum to sort of like what people considered like the closest thing to a gray Jedi in continuity, going her own way, she's kind of the Green Lantern, like the Hal Jordan of the Jedis, where she's just like, I don't want to be Green Lantern anymore. Okay, but now I'm Green Lantern, but now I don't want to be anymore. Like she's one of those characters, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool to kind of see her hit this moment, which I'm sure hit harder for us than it did for somebody who's just jumping into Ahsoka.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was cool to see this moment of like, no, I know what I want and I know who I am.
Yep.
And like the show in this whole sequence, right, where like they start fighting kind of on the landscape where they show the Siege of Mandalore, which again was great choreography. I know Hayden Christensen's a big like choreography nerd when it comes to like the like lightsaber stuff, and he really got to show off in this, which I absolutely loved. He did
so
the back
cool.
twirl, which was so fucking cool at one point. Like earlier on, I think we might have skimmed over it, but I haven't taught you everything moment before we get into like the past stuff, and he, you know, crashes down the floor, and that like what causes like the, you know, Ahsoka to kind of look back at these
reality of the world between worlds, and it's just like, you didn't see that coming,
which is the most Anakin Force Ghost, whatever this is type of thing that I absolutely
it's also you want to talk about the Bugs Bunny of it that I love too. And when I say Bugs Bunny, it's not a negative thing. How come when he cuts it, only her side falls? It's very Daffy Duck and Marvin the Martian. Of like, I'm sawing the plank, but only your side of the plank falls.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
He's controlling what she sees. He is
Yeah.
manipulating the entire visage. It makes perfect sense to me.
No, it's good. I like it.
Yeah, it's very good. But I love the, you know, at one point he says, like, you've learned nothing because she's trying to push back against, like, of them being more. And at one point, you know, this entire conversation has been kind of framed around throughout the entire episode of you get to choose to live or die. And that could be looked at as kind of through the lens of, like, light side and dark side in a way. Because at one point he says, like, again, like, live or die, and she responds no, and he goes, incorrect, like, you can only pick one, man. So there's a little bit of, I felt like maybe a slight Filoni commentary there of, like, we know people love the idea of great Jedi, but there's, you know, there's got to be a choice at the end of the day.
You don't get to do it. You don't get to do it. And one of the things that I like is Anakin is also coming from a point. Remember that what he says is Anakin Skywalker is dead. He says it for half his life.
Yeah.
He tells him Anakin Skywalker is dead.
Yep.
And in his mind, it's like, I had to make this choice multiple times. Like, don't worry, choosing live or die is not like you can choose it again.
Yeah.
But you have to keep in mind which one you want.
Yeah, I think that was really interesting. I think that I just wanted to also reference going back to the Siege of Mandalore and her choosing to show it right now was also a very interesting contrast to the way that it came up with Sabine last week. And that it is top of mind for both of them, that when we delved into the psyche of Ahsoka, she is also talking about, so in the contrast of him showing what he put her through, she is also thinking about not only what she's been through, but what she put Sabine through in Anakin's position. So, like, the cycle continued because of what he did to her.
And I want to see... and I want to see that, you know, this is the payoff that I've been waiting for. And I hope that we get to see it maybe next week or the next 2 weeks, maybe before they're reunited. I'd like to see another flashback or something where we finally get to, like, understand what the direct conflict is between the two of them.
Yeah, what was the inciting moment that, like, made Ahsoka and Sabine split up? Yeah, I would love to, whether it's a flashback or even just, like, a conversation of, like, yo, I fucked up. I failed you as a master here. Let's actually talk about it, right? But
do you think they split up? Do you think there was an inciting incident? Because I have fully just taken it as Ahsoka just abandoned her. Because I've taken it as, like, Sabine doesn't know why Ahsoka left her, and that's why we've not gotten the explanation. And, like, I have all of the things that I know about Ahsoka that I can use to justify. I'd still love for them to tell us these things, but, like, everything we know about Ahsoka, everything we know about the way that she has, like, seen history play out, and she fears the way that it plays out, and because of Anakin leaving her, I saw it as Ahsoka abandoned Sabine without reason, without cause, without a point activating it. She left her.
Yeah. No, I see that. I see that, and definitely there was some stuff that sounded like that, but there was also, like, very pointed mentions of the siege of Mandalore, and I just want to know what that's all about for them. That's all. I'm sure there's something to it, and I'd like to know what that is.
I would love to see more.
Also, where's the Bendu? Baby, if we're in the world between worlds, where's the Bendu?
I mean,
I'm the Bendu. I want the Bendu.
Do we know if he, like, has, like, a connection to that whatsoever? Because we saw him on the planet where they were hiding out in Rebels, but I never took him as someone who would be just hanging out in the world between worlds.
Dude, the Bendu has access to all the magics.
Okay.
He was responsible. He did the trials with Ezra. He did the Spectre of Maul, the Force Vision shit. The Bendu should be there, man. If we've got Purgles and we've got the world between worlds, and we don't have actual wolves, but the bad guys are named after wolves, there's only one Filoni thing that I am missing, and that's the fucking Bendu, baby.
Yeah.
Give me that Bendu.
But yeah, to bring it back to the kind of the end of the...
okay, I'm alone on the Bendu, as always.
Yeah, you are. Usually I'm with you, Anthony.
I like the Bendu, but I don't know if I need him for live action. But,
yeah, I don't need it.
So at the end of this kind of internal conflict or external conflict that Ahsoka's kind of going through, a little bit of both, like the entire scenario going on here. I love that, there's the line of "you lack conviction," and then near the end of this awesome fight that they have, Anakin at one point says, "Time to die," and Ahsoka says, "Finally, I choose to live." And he says, "There's hope for you yet," which I absolutely loved. And at one point, Ahsoka takes my camera is frozen. At one point, Ahsoka takes Anakin's lightsaber, and I don't know if it was the lighting. I was kind of watching my TV from far away. But it looks, the way that the lightsaber was hitting her eyes made Ahsoka look a little bit like she also had some Sith eyes going on there, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Yeah, I think that was definitely trick of the light and reflection and stuff, but it was very cool in that moment because of the intensity and sort of the emotion between the two of them. Man, I hope that this makes people who were not on board the "we need more Anakin Skywalker" train. I hope this puts them there. You know what I mean? Because I think it does in a way that in Obi-Wan, he was definitely playing Vader. He was Vader. There were moments of Anakin.
Loved it, personally.
But I do love conflicted Anakin, and we just didn't get enough conflicted Anakin for me, and I want to see more of it. But I also like seeing this alternate Anakin that could have been what everybody needed. And you get this flash of it, and he's using the fact that he's Vader in the world between worlds, like he's using it. But at the end, he's like, "Oh, you might learn something. Yeah, there's hope for you yet." It's like at the end of it all, he becomes Anakin again. And man, it's always cool to see those moments of like cool, good guy Anakin.
Vader was always about power. He needs this power to save Ahsoka right now. His most powerful form will always be Vader. He was always a more powerful Sith than he was a Jedi, so it makes sense that he is tapping into the dark side to leverage power, and that's the struggle of the Force. The struggle of the Force is the reality that the dark side is stronger.
And also to frighten her, because she's one of the few people right now that knows.
And then can we nerd out about it a little bit though? If you're talking about that, the red cast where it almost looks like it, it's like his evil, his darkness, his Sith is so powerful that you see it spilling onto her in the ways that it does reflect her, in the way that she is shut down and cold and afraid of becoming him. The way that it casts on her is such a cool visual storytelling device.
Yes.
Of yes, the red is coming from him. It is not her eyes glowing red, but it casting on her is this is exactly what you're afraid of becoming. This is exactly, in my opinion, why she walked away from being a master.
Well, and
she's terrified of being Anakin.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of the things when they talk about Anakin is supposed to bring balance to the Force. He does. He brings balance to the Force by getting rid of a corrupt Jedi Order. He does it by giving birth to his kids. Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa, who will help to balance things out. And also we're seeing more and more in these Star Wars stories, he did it kind of through Ahsoka too. He was kind of the master that Ahsoka needed to set her out on this path of becoming Fulcrum, becoming this kind of lone agent, and now kind of figuring out who she is and becoming Ahsoka the White.
Which
Barrett.
I'm gonna just be this image for the rest of the show here.
Barrett's in the world between worlds.
I'm in the world between worlds, and my camera
is
as overheated. But I do choose to live, just as Ahsoka did, who I love. Kind of wakes up in water, and this is a very kind of popular literary device of
now, is there
water
any
representing rebirth. All of this stuff.
Is there any religious imagery of that at all? Have we seen anything like that?
No, never.
Okay,
never. I don't think so.
Because I think it's a powerful image, but I have no idea why.
Are you talking about the shot where she's underwater?
No, I'm talking about water. Yeah, and then she comes out of the water.
Oh yeah, no, I don't. I could not think of anything that you could be referencing or thinking from yourself.
But it's cool.
Definitely,
I think more people should use it.
Yeah, more people should use it, and definitely not enough. But I loved the shot of
it's a good shot though.
Yeah, her underwater, and she's being saved, and then of course, through rebirth, right? She puts on the white robes and also the kind of white armor underneath as well. Is this the first time we've seen Ahsoka without a headdress when she wakes up on the Ghost or whichever ship she was on, because I don't know if I've seen her face actually just go into her tendrils. I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
Oh
yeah.
I don't know that we have. That's a great
question. It was a very weird shot, because obviously as well they were just like really just leaning into this, like, let's just lean into all of this almost religious imagery where you see her kind of waking up on the ship, and then just like the one light is lighting her directly. I was like, this is a weird shot, and then it cuts to more of like a close-up shot of her, and I was like, this is really weird, and I don't know why. And then I was like, wait, she's not wearing a headdress.
Yeah, you can see the like point where like her face connects to it. It's the thing where you go, oh yeah, not a hat.
Oh yeah, it's not a hat. Oh yeah, they're not wearing hats. The final thing that I do want to say about this episode is when I watched, if you watched it when it was still called Episode 5, Shadow Warrior is such a cool name for this, because it's basically, it was created by Akira Kurosawa, the term, to talk about sort of like the lone samurais and the style of samurai in his movies, which were obviously like a big influence on George Lucas. But then also Shadow Warrior is who Anakin is during this episode. Shadow Warrior is like talking about all these things. Like, it's just one of those things that we really love, where I like when they have the episode names that have 18 different meanings, and this was one of them.
Fun.
And then we get to the kind of last act here of the episode where Ahsoka wakes up. I love the kind of interaction she has with Jason here. Again, because this is happening after her refinding her conviction, she felt a little bit more like, how Ahsoka would talk to Ezra or Sabine back during the Rebels time. Just like from that moment, that was when it all clicked for me of like, that's what they've been doing. This is what they've been kind of building up towards. And I just really loved it. Jason walking away with Hu Yang, he's like, you guys have a training room?
Oh,
Can
God,
you train
so
me?
good.
No.
Hu Yang forever babysitter.
I love Hu Yang.
No. Yes. No.
The forever babysitter.
Do you know how to build a lightsaber? Yes. Can I build one? No. He's the best. I love
He'll
that David
never get
Tennant
away from helping children build lightsabers.
Yeah, I know. And then we get this
baby.
we get to Purgle time, where Hera has to kind of like fend off the fleet, or I think this is where Hera talks to Mothma, and Ahsoka's trying to put together a plan, since they can't use the map anymore, and she sees the Purgle up in the clouds, and she's like, all right, time to Finding Nemo this thing, baby.
Yeah. Carson during this is so hilarious, because
Carson's so good.
Whatever, I forget what that captain's name is, but she's just like, you've got to stop. He's like, can't stop. Got a mission. There's no mission. And like,
well, there is.
Carson will allow himself to be pushed to a certain point. He's like, and then she's like, okay, tractor beam, and you're in trouble. He's like, no, I'm not in trouble, because you're right. Like, Carson will only go so far. And that's one of the things that I actually like about Carson. He's one of those like neighborhood like dudes who's just like, I can't get in so much trouble that I can't help anymore. And that's his whole thing. And
he's smart.
He's a smart guy.
And I alluded to this line earlier of just like, there's something cynical in my head going on when the captain of that ship was like, we're all on the same side here, but there's just something that felt like off to me, and it's just like, I don't know if when people say that, I just don't trust them. She just
watched her captain get stabbed by a giant wolf man. So, I mean, she's probably a little by the book right now.
I think it was said a little bit weird. I think that they focused on it and they lingered on it to create an emotion in us of uneasiness. I think there's a lot of different ways to do good. A lot of people have very different ideas of what good is.
Yes.
And
I think right now she's one of those. Ooh. Yeah, I think right now she's one of those very by the book. You're not going to change anything, because remember, she's also new to command. Guy just got stabbed by a lightsaber like 2 days ago. So she's probably she's not somebody you can tell that you're doing something off the books. Absolutely not. But I don't think she's sinister. I think she's just one of those bureaucrats that we've come to know and hate.
I agree. I don't think it's sinister. I do think it's things where, like, in in the area of I'm trying to do good. We're not always going to agree with what everyone does in it, and there's an interesting thing there. But we're off to find Sabine.
Yes,
we are, and what is Ahsoka's plan essentially here when of using the Purgle?
this is the most Anakin thing I've ever seen Ahsoka do, and I love it.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I like it. Is because after this confrontation with Anakin, she does a very Anakin thing, which is, well, whales go that way. That's it. That's the thought. Yeah. Whales go that way. We can't go that way fast enough. Whales fast. And this feels like something that Anakin would do to Obi-Wan. This is, you know what I mean? Just like, everybody get in the whale mouth, and it's like, Anakin, no.
It's very Clone Wars, like one of the weirder arcs that we might have gotten from Clone Wars, which again I absolutely love. I love the plan is just we're going to go inside their mouth. Yeah. I was like, oh my god, we're doing the Finding Nemo thing.
Yeah, she says to Hu Yang, he's like, we may be going like the wrong place. It's like, but we're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
going
it's like it could go
going nowhere.
Yeah, it's like it could go anywhere, better than going nowhere though, which I absolutely love. And shout out to the, Hera and Jason also like trying to help like coordinate everything, and Jason's kind of taken in like, oh, it's like the stories you told me about Ezra flying off with the Purgle, and Hera kind of reminiscing about that a little bit. I just absolutely adored.
Now remember, son, whenever you see Purgles, somebody dies and somebody never comes back.
Kind of, yeah.
So I guess to end this episode of the screencast here, I've got a couple of questions. Obviously, Hera wasn't able to go along for the ride with Ahsoka and Hu Yang. But also, before I get into this thought, shout out to just seeing the Purgle do the jump in live action. Very cool. Love that.
So cool.
Loving to see like their back ends like kind of light up as they're getting ready, which is awesome. There's a little bit of, Mothma not holding it over Hera, but a little bit of, hey, you could be stripped of your rank here. Where do we think Hera's kind of journey goes from here after trying to help Ahsoka kind of, off the book here a little bit?
Ultimately, I think she walks. I don't know if it happens during this series, but ultimately she leaves the New Republic. I think that's what happens.
What about you, Saige?
Yeah, I think this is her journey in losing faith in the order she's a part of, which we see a lot in Star Wars. I think that there probably won't be a ton of the exploration of the middle point because it's already very well justified in this. I think that she has a kid to look out for and protect, and she has a kid who's also like wants to do more and using the Force and using these things where she's like, ooh, I don't know if I want you to do that. Now you have to deal with having the most specialist boy kid, which Star Wars loves the most specialist boy. So I think in the interest of following his abilities, following Jason in potentially receiving Sabine when she comes back, I think that the end of this show is her departure with like this chosen family outside of the Order.
New Republic's most of them never seen a space wizard. There's no room in the computer for space wizard. If your kid's a space wizard, they don't know how to deal with it.
But also everybody's a space wizard.
Yes, a lot of people can be space wizard.
Yeah. And then the last question obviously is now we're making the big jump here. What do we think this other galaxy is going to be like? That we have 3 more episodes tonight.
San Francisco, California, 1973.
I hope it looks exactly like the Star Wars universe that we know, except there's just like one thing a little off. Like the color palette's a little different, and everyone wears a hat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
It's hat people all the way down.
I like that. I like if like Thrawn is like, oh, finally I can stop wearing this hat,
Yeah.
But yeah, we have 3 episodes left. I feel like there's a lot still to focus on with Ahsoka, maybe on the journey to this other galaxy before they're able to even catch up with Morgan. And we didn't see any of the antagonists this episode, which was kind of crazy outside of weird Anakin both sides of the Force type of thing. But
I think next episode is going to be focused on Sabine being with them, and we probably won't see a lot of our guys until kind of towards the end of the episode.
Where they're getting closer to meeting up, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah. I agree with
Thrawn
that.
and penultimate.
I'd like to see Thrawn in 7. I don't want to wait until the very last episode to see Thrawn.
Yeah.
That's why I think second to last episode. I think 7
reveal
is Thrawn.
7.
There's the shot of him in the trailer where you just see his back and he's kind of walking onto the hyperspace ring that they've built.
Yeah. But then there's the other shot of him in the trailer hula hooping, and I don't know how they get from one to the other. And that's why I'm saying I'd like to see him in 7. There's I think the bridge walk that we see is big reveal at the very end of 7, and then 8 is a Thrawn heavy episode. That's what I'd like.
Yeah.
I would, and this is just like personal selfish reasons, I could see the walking onto the ship as the big moment at the very end of episode 6. Just
Okay.
because
You just want your boy. You're like, I could see Thrawn coming in at the opening of the next episode, and he sits down and he looks at the camera and he says, "Barrett, I love you, and I've always loved you." And I know that's what you want. I know
It
that's
is what I
and
want.
I
It is what
that
I want.
for you. I want it for you.
did I fall in love with Thrawn and his lieutenant during the Thrawn book that Zahn wrote back in like 2018? Yes, I did a little
Yes.
bit, all right? Because they're fucking awesome.
The
and I
Thrawn
love
books
their
are
relationship.
so good.
You're talking
they're
about
so
Rook. Before
good.
there was Bodhi Rook, there was Thrawn's Rook.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope
I
you
just
get your
find
Thrawn,
it.
bud.
I would find it interesting in the show with like so much of overlooming of what's going on here is Thrawn's return, and I think it would be. I don't know. Like, I think there's still a lot to unpack with Thrawn, a lot to unpack with Ezra,
Do
whether
you know what my
Ezra's
big-
alive or.
Are you ready? This is my big prediction. This is my big hot take to end the show with. No Ezra, at all.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's like even if there is no Ezra, there's still going to be a lot to unpack with that, and so I
There's no
feel
Ezra.
like.
You think there's no
I w-
Ezra?
Doesn't
I
happen.
would personally like to see like 2 episodes of them unpacking that stuff. I could see it maybe being boiled down to 1, but yeah, that's just.
You just think we
'cause-
don't find Ezra?
Yeah. We're not going to see or hear or anything of Ezra. I think we end with Sabine looking at that hologram again.
Oh,
I think that's how.
But
we
in a
end.
different context and light, you know.
Yeah. In a
Okay.
galaxy where everyone's wearing hats.
And on
night,
that
everybody.
note, yep.
Wednesday
Thank you all so much
there's
for
3 more
joining us.
episodes, all Thrawn.
Yeah, well, no, not all Thrawn, but
All
a little bit more of Thrawn. Thank you all so much for joining us for the Kind of Funny screencast, where we break down all the biggest and nerdiest shows you could possibly want right here on youtube.com/kindoffunny and on podcast services around the globe. Tim will be back next week. Again, he was on assignment swinging around with everybody's favorite webhead, Heroes. Carboni, where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere online at Carboni, except for Twitch, where I'm at Anthony Carboni, and Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning on Pixel Circus with Saige.
You did not mention the Twitch thing last week, and I thought for a second, did he get Carboni back? But it's sad to hear that you're still struggling
No,
with
I've
that.
petitioned my congressman and everything.
Oh, wow. Saige, where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at NotSage, as well as Wednesday, who has joined us 2 weeks in a row for the screencast here.
Wow.
She just
Yeah, the Screen
apparently
Cats.
it's about. There you go. And you can find me with Anthony, of course, on It's Too Early. We just revealed our new set today.
Ooh, that's very exciting. Make sure to check all of that out. Thank you all so much for joining us for another episode of the Kind of Funny screencast. But until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.